Look and feel better with unique Healing Calcium Citrate Crutch with vitamin D as you're healing your bowel and body with this program. Calcium citrate will help you to have less symptoms, to feel better, have less water weight, less blood sugar problems, addictions, while you're healing your bowel and body with this program. Calcium is an alkalinizing mineral. It does way more than just build healthy bones. It does help to do that. Of course, your bones will be very healthy once you heal your bowel and body with this program. But in the interim, by all means, use this or continue to use it for your bone health. But know that there are uses and values for calcium way beyond just healthy bones. Remember that when you have acids in your blood that aren't being eliminated from your bowel, when your bowels are not twice a day and really well formed, you've got a lot of uneliminated acidity, and that is dangerous, and your body has many ways to protect you against that. It can retain water, it can make release histamines, release inflammatory chemicals, it can produce more cholesterol, all of those things giving you allergies, headaches, aches and pains, high cholesterol levels. It can reduce, those acids can attach to oxygen, so you have low oxygen levels, more asthma, more fatigue, all kinds of symptoms. Many of them are triggered by acids in your blood. You will understand that better when you read both of my books, Unique Healing and Unique Healing 2. But for now, know that what the calcium then can do is attach to those acids, make them less dangerous, and as a result, your body now doesn't have to secrete the histamines or the inflammatory chemicals or retain the water or attach it to oxygen or make cholesterol to protect you against it. What you do need to know, though, as great as that sounds, is that calcium is just a crutch. It is not a cure. Calcium, unlike bentonite, which similarly reduces the acids in your blood and reduces the low oxygen and the histamines and the inflammatory chemicals and the cholesterol, etc., etc., etc. While calcium and bentonite both can improve your symptoms and your weight while you're healing, the bentonite is healing, the calcium is just a crutch. The bentonite actually takes those acids causing those problems and helps to eliminate them, whereas the calcium just buffers them. So the bentonite is like scooping the trash out of the house, whereas the calcium is just some perfume for that trash. The reason I recommend it, as I say down here, but I'm going to jump to right now, is because the upside of calcium is that it takes a lot less calcium to treat your symptoms than it does bentonite. So for example, if you still have excess acids in your blood and your bowels aren't doing well, for example, and you're having headaches frequently, you might find that another 40 or 50 bentonite capsules helps you feel better, whereas it might only take another 10 or 12 calcium to feel better. It's okay to choose the one that is easier, i.e. less pills like the calcium, as long as you are not just taking calcium, which you're not if you're doing this program, but you're also taking the bentonite and healing. It's okay, take advantage of those crutches as long as you know that's all it is. A number of years ago, someone who has written some very famous best-selling books got on TV, did lots of infomercials saying that calcium cured everything from A to Z. That didn't pan out. It didn't cure everything from A to Z. Sold a lot of calcium and people weren't cured of things. So that soon fizzled out. But the reason, and there was a lot of controversy around that, and I agree with that because it is a crutch and you cannot call a crutch a cure. Okay, cure, I think, needs to be defined as something's gone and it stays gone permanently and effortlessly. When you take calcium, you're spraying the trash with perfume, but the trash is still there. As soon as you stop the calcium, the trash is there, the symptoms come back. That's not a cure. Things like bentonite gradually and eventually, cumulatively get all that trash or acidity out of your body. Nevertheless, again, because it can take a lot less of this to feel better, it's a worthwhile crutch to use while you're doing this program. It is, there are several misunderstandings about calcium, and I'm just going to touch on a few. One, of course, is the fact that most of y'all probably think it's just important for bone health, and again, that's not true. It has value way beyond that, as I mentioned, as far as reducing many of the problems associated with those acids not getting out. But certainly, if you're worried about bone health or have had a diagnosis of osteoporosis or osteopenia, while those are going to improve when you heal your bowel and body with this program, you should be taking something like calcium to help your bone health. It is also very important that the quality of calcium that you use is something very easy to assimilate and absorb like calcium citrate. My product is 80% calcium citrate. There are many calcium products, even in the health food store, that are made of a much lower quality calcium. And even though it might have the same milligrams, you're not going to absorb and assimilate as much. So, it's not a value. It's not about quantity but quality. So if you take something with 100 milligrams but can only absorb 10% of it, that's worse than taking something with 50 milligrams when you can absorb 100% of it. I know it's complicated, and I'm sorry that it's made that way for you. Unfortunately, it's partly done that way because the cheaper calciums, you go to the store, they cost less, you don't know any better, so understandably you're going to buy the less expensive one, going, well, what the heck, why am I going to spend more for this product next door to it? I don't, this one's cheaper. You get what you pay for in many cases, and definitely when it comes to high quality calcium. Again, the bigger misunderstandings about calcium are, number one, occasionally I have someone think that calcium is going to increase the calcium levels in their blood, or maybe they've been diagnosed with high calcium levels in their blood and they've been told by their health practitioner to stop taking calcium. That is massively wrong. Massively wrong. There is not a study in the world that I'm aware of that shows that taking calcium in large amounts causes high blood calcium levels. In fact, if you understand the physiology of the body the way I do, you would understand why, if you take calcium, those levels would become normal, not higher. And in fact, in 100% of the clients I've worked with who have been maybe brave enough, wise enough, smart enough, I don't know what adjective to use, but to follow my advice and take high amounts of calcium when they have high blood calcium levels, 100% of them have found their calcium levels to become normalized by doing that, not become higher. Okay, likewise, there are many practitioners who've told my clients, oh my God, all that calcium is going to give you kidney stones. I want to scream when I hear that. All of the medical studies that have been done on calcium and taking kidney stones find that when you give someone or whatever more calcium, there are less kidney stones. Kidney stones are really largely cholesterol that's created when your body's real acidic. You buffer it with the calcium, there's less cholesterol, bile salts, less stones made. That's another story. You can find more about stones in my second book, Unique Healing, too, by the way. Suffice to say, it is just the opposite. You will have less stones the more calcium you take. There has also been very recently something floating around online about calcium might cause heart disease risk, increase your risk of heart disease. That also drives me crazy, okay? This happens all the time where two variables coexist, and practitioners, medical personnel, etc. are allowed to see these two things coexist and say, well, gee, we think one causes the other, so that could be dangerous, stop doing it. That's not science. If you think something is causing something else, science requires you to now take that variable and test it independently and see if you get that result. That's how science works. And then if you test it and get the result, then you're allowed to conclude that there's a cause and effect analogy. So if they think that calcium causes heart disease, then they need to go do tests and control one variable, which is calcium intake, give people lots of calcium, compare them to the control groups that aren't taking it, and see if there's more risk. If then they find that there's risk, then and only then should they be allowed to go out and spread this word around the world that it could be dangerous, okay? They're not going to find that, because what I know about the physiology of the body, which you hopefully now know from reading my books, is that it's just the opposite. Those tests are going to find there's a lot less heart disease, because heart disease, like many problems, are aggravated by all those acids in your blood, and calcium reduces them. Lastly, many people wrongly think that calcium doesn't work without magnesium. That is not true whatsoever. They all work together. In fact, if you have low magnesium levels, those will be improved by taking calcium. Why? Because they're both alkaline minerals. So if you take the calcium and buffer the acids, your body now is not having to deplete your magnesium levels to buffer those acids for you. I intentionally left the magnesium out of this because it can have a laxative effect, and I didn't want you to have that problem. Last but not least, labels can be misleading, so be careful when you read a label. Make sure you look at the serving size, and it must say calcium in parentheses as calcium citrate. If you're comparing apples to apples, there are some that are cheaper that say just calcium citrate, and those don't have as much calcium as mine does. I'm sorry this is made annoyingly confusing for you. It's not my fault. Anyway, for more information, please check out both my books and my website, www.uniquehealing.com. And as always, you can also schedule an appointment if you have further questions about all this. So I hope that helps.